Okay, let's look at electrical test 5. When a light is dimmer than normal, it means that the bulb is wearing out.
False.
Huh?
False.
Yeah, isn't that kind of silly? However, haven't you seen those bulbs that have this silvery looking stuff on the inside of the glass? Now, what in the world is that?
It's to reflect it and concentrate the...
Well, it actually ain't like that to start with. They get that way after they are used for a while. Of course, you're right. That question is false, according to this answer key. But I've seen some of them that just aren't as bright as they would be if they didn't have that silver stuff. I think it's molecular transfer of that metal to the glass. Every time that... it's kind of like a ionization thing going on there. I mean, I don't know why it's important to even talk about that, but I've noticed it for years. Those little things will be there. The most common LED color is green. Is that true or false? That's false. Because LEDs have filaments, they are less likely to require replacement.
Sound like hogwash, but filament's the weak link, ain't it?
Well, yeah, an LED is, they don't have filaments. I mean, they're less likely to require a replacement, but it's not because they have filaments, it's because they don't have filaments. So that question is false. A typical headlight switch has 3 positions. Is that true? That is true, isn't it? Yeah, how many positions do you think it's got?
Open and running lights and headlights on.
Yeah, it's just there's just 3, typically. Sealed beam bulbs contain the filament, the reflector, and the lens in one unit. And what is a sealed beam bulb? Anybody know what it is?
That's one of them old style headlights where you had to buy the entire glass housing and all.
Yep, the one that's on that, the one I got on that trainer board right there is a sealed beam.
Yep.
All right. Okay, if the tail light fuse is burned out, the panel lights are also out.
No.
Really? That's true. Believe it or not. How do they wire that up? How do they make that happen?
They used them in a series.
Well, watch this. There's your fuse, right? There's your switch. I'm just drawing this very simply. And this is going to your tail lights, right? All right, which actually are got, they are around right here. They come off of that with another fuse, and they go to your dash lights. So that way, if this fuse pops and those lights are out, these will out, and that's warning you got a problem. This one here will be a 5 amp fuse, and this one here will usually be a 15. That's just basic wiring. But if that pops, this fuse will still be good, but your taillights will be out. So if your taillights are out, these will be dark too. That's just basically like a warning thing, so you'll know if my tail light, oh no, my dash lights are out. You got to have that looked at, and they can say, well, your tail lights are out too. You see. And, we used to have some of these diesels, pickup trucks, and because of diesel pickup, a diesel engine doesn't produce vacuum.
No.
It's got just wide open wide open hole in there. You don't actually operate a throttle plate. Now, some diesels, some of the electronic diesels have got a throttle plate for the purpose of changing the pressure so EGR will flow. But basically speaking, a diesel, doesn't create vacuum because there's no throttle plate. You got to have a throttle plate to make vacuum. And so the way how do you change the speed and power of a diesel? You add and subtract fuel. You're just going to open up your injector pump and put more fuel in there, right? That's how you do a diesel. Okay, so they had a little vacuum. Some of the earlier diesels had a vacuum pump on them that would spin with a pulley. And the pulley was kind of like a power steering pump pulley. It had that special little lip on it so you could pull it off. But they weren't on there quite as tight as a power steering pump pulley, in spite of the fact they looked the same. And this one guy came out of the parts room one day, and he said the parts guys, when they sold him a vacuum pump, a pulley didn't come with it. And the vacuum pump was bad. It was off one of them diesels, a little diaphragm thing when it spun. And so he walked out there and he says, can you get this pulley off of this vacuum pump for me, because I don't have any way to do it. And I said, well, let's see what we can do here. So I picked up I dropped a bolt in the hole, that goes down in there, like a power steering pump got on it. And I held the pulley in my hand, and I took my air hammer and pushed it right out of there. And I said, if you got an air hammer at home, you can do that too. But you got to pull it back on. I told him to screw a piece of all thread in there and pull it on with a bolt in the washer. Make sure you grease the threads in the washer, and also it'll go on there smooth. It's doable like that. But there's another one, and when I started thinking this way, on some of them late 90s Ford pickup trucks, to provide vacuum for inside the dash, they had Hydro Boost for the brakes. The power steering pump provided hydraulic pressure over there, and the brakes work that way. But they still needed a vacuum for the servos inside the dash to move the little doors and all. And so what they would do is they had a little bitty vacuum pump about this big over there, and it would go and run and make vacuum for that. It would fill up a little vacuum, pull the air out of a little vacuum reservoir for muscle vacuum and all that kind of thing. So when that thing would they'd come in there with them not working, they would say, my vacuum pump's not working, because my dash doors don't work and all that, and they couldn't hear the vacuum pump anymore. And I'd walk around behind it, and I'd say, put it in reverse. And they put it in reverse, and the backup lights wouldn't come on. I'd say, you got a bad junction box or a blown fuse. But what you could do is you go in there and you check if there's power on both sides of that fuse, but there's no power coming out of the junction box feeding that thing. The junction box was bad. This is all there was to it. It didn't cost a whole lot. I mean, it's a big thing, but it didn't cost all that much. But I saw that repeatedly. If you get to where you understand that, that's when people get amazed at you because they don't know how fast you can figure something out. If you've seen it before, push, pull, snap, click, I know what's wrong with it, bam, bam, you fix it, and they're on their way, and they're happy. And then you get the big bucks because, the diagnosis is an hour, and you were through with that in 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Plus, you get the other. One time these people came in over here, and they says, these people traveling, this man and these two men and their wives, were traveling together on a Grand Cherokee. They were from out of town. They pull in there and they say, hey, can you come out right up here? Get his speaker. Where's the color right up here? This kind of stuff. So I walk out there. Yeah, what you got? They said, the guy says, whenever I start the car, it resets my clock. The clock goes back to 12, when he starts the car. So what do you think that is?
It's intermittent round or something.
No, it was a bad battery. See, the voltage threshold of that clock needed to keep its time. It would dip below that just briefly when you were starting it. And it'd be like taking a battery cable off and putting it back on. And of course, I was sort of every now and then I joke with people a little bit. Hey, I got to tell you, he was a nice guy, and he wasn't going to get bothered by anything. So he says, I said, when I spun it over, I could tell by the sound of it, it wasn't spinning all that good either. I said, you need a battery. He said, oh, well, I'm glad y'all caught that here. Why don't put me a battery in it? I said, no, we don't do batteries here. You're only going down the road. He was like, and the guy that was with him got so tickled because he said, boy, you sure zinged him. And these barbers, I was having this lady's barbers cutting my hair one time. There's two of them there, side by side working. And I said, you know what barbers were doing during the Vietnam War? Vietnamese barbers? They said, no, what? I said, cutting hair. She says, oh, man. Well, they think you're going to tell them something mysterious, but they were still cutting hair. All right. Let me see. Tail light fuse is burned out. Panel lights are also, that's right. The brightness of the panel lights is controlled by the rheostat. What in the Sam Hill is a rheostat? There's actually, if you go by the answer key on that, that's supposed to be false, but it's actually true because when you turn your knob on a lot of the older cars, they actually had a rheostat in that knob, the little ceramic resistor that was in a circle that would when them points would slide across it and all that. The ambient light sensor supplies normal power to the lights for nighttime driving. Is that true? Yeah, ambient light sensor. Ambient light meaning the light is out here now. That's actually true, if you've got a system that's set up that way. A disadvantage of a heavy-duty flasher is that the flash rate will not change if one or more bulbs are burned out. What did the flashers do in years gone by if they had a little flasher? They had a little flasher that was made, it was calibrated just exactly right so that if one of your bulbs burned out, it wouldn't flash. It'd just stay on. Because, it's the heat. The amps is flowing through that flasher, what makes that little bimetal strip go ding, 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 ding. And so what they do is, if you look at them flashers, and I'm talking about these kind of flashers, like the one I did have in here that I can't find now. Oh, here it is. These little flashers right here. If you look on that flasher really close, and this one here may be eat up by oxidation and stuff, it will tell you 2 lamp. If you look on that thing really, 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 really close, and you freeze that, it says 2 lamp. This is a 2-lamp flasher. A lot of times people don't even give a rip. They just give me a flasher. They throw a flasher, and the newer flash, it'll flash no matter if the lights are blown or not. But the one that the manufacturer put in was one of these kind, and it's a 2-lamp flasher. And so whenever the bulb was blown out, it was supposed to let you know. And that's what that flasher looked like. You just hook it up in series in between, whatever lights you're going to blink, and it'll go ding, 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 ding. It flashes. That's what it's made to do. So anyway, that's what that's talking about there. All right. So, but 9 is true. Backup lights and hazard warning lights are included in the daytime running lights. What? Is that pretty much hogwash there? Who said that? All right, we got 5 more questions to go, and we'll be in good shape. Which of the following is not a major component of the headlight circuit? Dimmer switch, front parking light, dome light, or license plate light? The dome light really has nothing to do with the headlights, does it? So that's going to be a C. What color is not used as an instrument panel warning light?
Green.
Number 12. Actually, D. And that may confuse you because some of them may look yellow, but that's amber. It's sort of an orange light. But you do have some green lights that come on some cars. As a matter of fact, in the 1960s, a lot of cars had a cold light. When you'd crank the car, as long as the engine was cold, that light would stay illuminated. And it may be green or it might be blue. A lot of people have probably forgotten about that. But some of them also would have a vacuum gauge on them so you could kind of keep it in the green and maybe get better gas mileage, right? They also, Chrysler's had the turn signal indicator was on the fender up there. You remember that? You ever seen those? On the fender up there, in front of the fender, they'd have a little turn signal indicator that was pointing back at the driver so they could see it. And on some of those Dodges, Plymouths and all that, they would have that hooked to a vacuum transducer. And that vacuum transducer would turn that light on brighter if your vacuum went low, so that you would know that you were burning too much gas. You see what I mean? They came up with all kind of crazy ideas back in those days about this, that, and the other, and all that stuff kind of went away over time, But anyway, yellow is the thing that you don't use an instrument panel warning light. Now, some check engine lights, the power loss light that you would see on some of your older Dodges, that had OBD1, that was like the check engine light. Listen to this because it's important. Some of the early Fords had a red light that would come on if your oil pressure went low or if your engine got hot. And either one of those conditions would cause this red light to come on that said engine. Just engine. It was a red light that said engine. All right, now Chrysler's, if something went wrong with the emission system, it would say power loss. And you'd find out what your code was. You'd flip the key on 3 times and leave it on the last time, and it would blink the code. And if I've got those. As a matter of fact, on my, I think on my Technical Writer Facebook page, maybe I put those codes on there. Them Chrysler 2-digit codes. If you ever want to look those up. 55. When you get a 55 like that, it means that there's no more codes. It's the end of the message. See what I'm saying? So I just remember that. But when diagnosing lighting problems, remember the light bulbs are connected in what? 13 is A, parallel. Now, what lights, when you say in series, what would be the problem with connecting lights in series?
Christmas tree lights.
Well, yeah, but if one of them goes out, they're all dark.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem, isn't it? You don't want all the lights to go out. And remember, I told you, one time I wired up some lights on a pipe loader that way because it was a 24-volt system, and all I could find was 12-volt bulbs. And rather than hooking them up with resistors and all that kind of hogwash, I just went ahead and wired them up in series. How did that work? 24-volt system, I get 12-volt lights, and I wire them up in series. Each one of them is pulling 12 volts that way, right? They're half as bright as they would have been. If you were to hook them up 24 volts, they're going to go. The only thing you can get away with that with is if you happen to have a vehicle that's an older one, like them old Volkswagen Bugs that used to be 6-volt systems, and you put you change a 12-volt Volkswagen Bug to a 12-volt system, you had to change the generator, which they had a generator instead of an alternator, and you had to change the battery, obviously, and you need to put a different voltage regulator on it. But the starter could be left alone because all it would do is just spin like crazy. and it was real fast. All right, the color of the brake indicator light is what?
Red.
Huh?
Red.
Okay, that's typically going to be a red one, isn't it?
Brake indicator light.
You know, like the brake light, the one that says brake. When the brake fluid goes lower when you hit the park brake or whatever. That's the one I'm talking about. And have you ever seen them in Cadillacs? Some of them Cadillacs used to have a little, I think it was fed by optic fibers or something up there at the top of the back glass. When you mashed the brake, those little bitty lights up there that you could see from inside the car through your rearview mirror, they would come on if the brake lights were working. If you had a bulb that was out in the back, one of those little red lights wouldn't show, but it was fed up there by optic fibers. As I remember, I may be totally wrong about that, so don't quote me. But I do know that when one of them lights was out, it told you didn't have good lights back there. At least, well, that's what we always wondered about. A lot of the stuff they put on Cadillacs was really mysterious, because Cadillacs had a totally different way of thinking. Matter of fact, if you think you know the firing order on a GM car, 18436F72, and you wire up a Cadillac that way, you're going to be sorely surprised, because they are a totally different firing order. They don't, I made a fool out of myself one time wiring one of them things up like that. Made it pop and snap and backfire and blowing fire out the carburetor. And just, my boss man was jumpy anyway. It was back in the 70s. But I figured, this is a GM car. I know how to wire this up. So I just popped them spark plug wires in there, yanked all of them out. And it would go, boom, fit fire out in the back. And he'd go, oh! He said, trace that thing out. You're driving me crazy with all them backfires and stuff. And so I went and looked it up. And doggone if that firing order was all over the map, different from what other GM cars were. The color of the ABS indicator light is what? Amber.
That could be both, though. I seen them red and amber. I could swear I have.
ABS lights. Well, I'm not going to dispute that because there's a lot of cars around there and they do a lot of different things. So as sure as the world, if I started to say, no, that is not true, then you would prove me wrong. So, sometimes you'll find the stuff that just blow you away. I'll tell you something else. Some of these vehicles have got a little light. Some of the lights I don't know what in the Sam Hill they mean. Like my wife's 2000, the average customer is not going to know. So her Taurus had a light that looked like a gear. I can't draw it. It's perfect. And it had an exclamation point in the middle of it.
I would imagine that'd be a gear like a drivetrain.
Transmission problem is what that means. But, they didn't do that for a long time. That was on that 2001 Taurus that she had. Now, they don't put those. I got a 2007 Taurus I'm driving right now. It ain't got that light. But hers did.
I don't really think you need that light. When your transmission's screwed up.
Yeah. Well, I guess if it gets too hot or something, it might do that. Hey, Amanda. You're a pretty good girl most of the time. Yeah. I was really happy to see you with my buckle. Boy, did I ever make a silly mistake on that. Did you know what happened on that deal? No. Well, whenever you buy that seatbelt pretensioner part, you could probably tell a customer this and save them some trouble. We had already replaced this buckle assembly with a new one a while back. And so whenever the seatbelt came, he had one of those in there with it. And that part was ordinarily $75 as an extra part. And I said, I don't know why they sent us one of these, but we'll just put it over here on the table, right? And so, anyway, I put that thing in, the airbag light went out, everybody was happy, right? So, the next time the car came in, they said, the passenger side seat belt won't latch. And I said, really? And so, I went and got the old seat belt, and it went click, and I got the new one, and it wouldn't go in there. And I looked at them, and they were totally different. Okay, so the point is, see, Dennis and them, they didn't know. When I told them about this, they were scratching their heads about this. And they were saying, what's up with that? Why would they give you one of those? Well, because the old one wouldn't fit. Well, I get to looking for the one that came with it. I can't find it anywhere. You know how that works around here? Yeah. Okay, so we wound up in a pickle with this stuff. I'm trying to figure out, but this buckle has got to be put on that car, the 2006 Crown Vic.
That's how before we changed the inside part out.
Yeah, on the right side. We were supposed to put this on there too because unless you change the point, put it one that came with it on there. And you know what happens in a situation like that? They get a part from a different vendor. And the different vendor has a slightly different design to the buckle. And so they have to give you both parts because it's incompatible with the other one. Well, see, I was dumb enough to where I figured we don't need to change it, and I didn't get in the seat and try to make sure it would buckle. I mean, that's a silly mistake. Anyway, but now if they get pulled over and somebody's not wearing a seatbelt, they can say, "Hey, it won't work." All right, hey, which tail did you get? Okay, all right. Well, all right. Everything going okay with you? All right, you look healthy and strong and happy, and you got a good color. All right. All right. Well, I'll see you next time. All right. Hey, by the way, lay that on my desk if you don't mind. Yes, you can get one. Thank you.
Next time I get pulled over for no seatbelt, I'm going to drop a nickel down there real quick and clam them tape.